Look at his face. Not his body, not the weight on the bar, not the numbers. His face. There is nothing there. No fire, no joy, no pain. Just a man moving weight in a cold room somewhere in Russia. As if the act of lifting has become as mechanical and as empty as breathing. Now go back. Find the old footage. The early videos, the ones before the world knew his name. Look at that face. That man is smiling. This is the story of Andrey Smaev, a man who started with everything that mattered: joy, hunger, art, and somewhere along the road, becoming one of the most talked about physiques on the internet, lost the thing that made it all worth doing it in the first place. The question this video asks isn't how strong he is. The question really is, was it worth it? The village of Satis sits in Nizhny Novgorod region of Russia. It is not the kind of place that produces legends. It is the kind of place the world forgets. A small, industrial town where men go to work in factories, raise their families, and live quietly on remarkable lives. Andrey Smaev was born here, and for a while, he was just a kid, curious, scrappy, full of something that could only be described as liveliness. That particular energy that certain young people carry before the world gets its hands on them. And one day, he sat in front of a television and watched Arnold Schwarzenegger. Something lit up inside him. It wasn't just the muscles, it wasn't just the spectacle, it was the idea. The radical, almost absurd idea that a man could build himself into something greater than its surroundings, that the body was a project, that transformation was possible. And in the early footage of Andrey, the grainy, unpolished clips of a young man training on outdoor bars in a small Russian town, you can see that idea burning in him. He is grinning between sets, he is laughing with the camera, he looks like someone who has found the thing that made his life make sense, and cannot believe his luck. That smile. Remember it, because this story is partly about what happened to it. Andrey began training in his school years, self-taught, resourceful, and completely obsessed in the best possible way. He gravitated towards outdoor bars, the rusted iron frames that dot the Russian landscape, monuments to a Soviet culture that believed in physical hardness as a virtue. But Andrey wasn't content with just pull-ups. He pushed himself into powerlifting, into kettlebells, into street lifting, disciplines that most athletes never dare to combine, because the physical demands of each one are almost contradictory. Pure brute strength versus explosive bodyweight mastery. But Andrey did it all, and at the same time. And the thing is, he was remarkable at every single one. His first structured exposure to weightlifting came through a school physical education teacher. That spark grew into something consuming. He competed in powerlifting, street lifting, kettlebell sport, and arm wrestling, eventually earning a title of Candidate Master of Sports, an elite distinction in Russian athletic culture. He wasn't training for the internet. He wasn't chasing followers or sponsorships or viral moments. He was training because it made him feel something. Because the barbell and the bar and the kettlebell were his language, and he spoke it fluently with pleasure. This is the version of Andrey Smaev the world almost never got to see. The one who trained for love, not leverage. Hold on to that image. It won't last forever. Life, as it tends to do, intervened. From elementary school, Andrey's vision had been quietly deteriorating. By the 9th grade, what had once been healthy sight had collapsed to -8. He could barely make out the barbell in front of him. The thing he loved the most in the world was becoming a blur. By 18, his vision dropped to -10. Doctors prescribed surgery, and during recovery, heavy training was completely off the table. No barbells, no heavy iron, nothing. For a young man whose entire identity had been built around physical achievement, this was its own kind of darkness. But here is where the character of Andrey Smaev reveals itself. Because instead of stopping, he pivoted. Stripped of weights, he turned to calisthenics, the outdoor bars, the rings, the raw world of bodyweight movement. In a single summer, he mastered movements that athletes spend years trying to learn. One-arm pull-ups, front lever, muscle up. All of it learned in the span of months by a man still recovering from eye surgery. And in this video from this period, he is still smiling, still laughing, still radiating that particular joy of a person who has found their way back to something they love after being separated from it. There is a lightness to him in these clips that is almost painful to watch in retrospect. But this is the last chapter where the lightness is uncomplicated. Andrey wasn't doing any of this as a full-time athlete. He was working at a factory. Heavy, physically demanding production job. That kind of labor that grinds most men into the ground long before they hit 30. 12-hour shifts, industrial exhaustion, the weight of the working class Russian life pressing down on him alongside the literal weight of the bar. And still, he trained. He used Soviet-era kettlebells bought for 7 rubles. He used old worn plates, and he built a body that looked like it had been engineered in a laboratory using equipment from a Soviet garage sale. He spoke about this with quiet pride later, a gentle rebuke to the excuses the rest of the world makes. No time, no energy, no equipment. Andrey had none of those things and still became extraordinary. This is the part of the story that should be celebrated most loudly. The grit, the resourcefulness, the working man who refused to let circumstances define his ceiling. But there's something else about this period worth noting. In the clips from these years, before the internet found him, before the numbers got enormous, before anything, Andrey Smaev looked content. Not famous, not massive, not yet carrying the hollow expression that would later become his signature on camera. He looks like a man who is simply living his life and enjoying it. That man was everything, and most of the world never knew he existed. In the summer of 2020, a video appeared online. No commentary, no dramatic editing, no hype machine behind it. Just a man in a gray Russian town doing things with a barbell and a pull-up bar that the internet could not explain. He bench pressed 200 kilos for 11 reps, and his deadlift was also enormous. His squats were deep, and then, as if to remind you that none of the rules applied to him, he walked over to the bar and performed a one-arm pull-up at over 105 kilos of body weight. The internet lost its mind. Videos spread globally within days. Comments flooded in from every corner of the fitness world. Bodybuilders were stunned, calisthenics athletes were baffled, powerlifters were questioning their own careers. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Who was this man? He wasn't a professional, he wasn't backed by a federation or a supplement company. He was a factory mechanic from a village most people had never heard of. And here's the thing about this moment that matters for our story. Andrey Smaev did not really ask for this. Fame arrived in a way a storm arrives, without invitation or mercy. And with it came something far more complicated than recognition. It came with expectation. The internet had found its new obsession, and obsessions, as anyone who has ever been one tell you, have many ways of demanding more than you originally agreed to give. Now, we need to go back, because the chapter that defines everything about Andrey Smaev's story didn't happen in 2020 when the world discovered him. It happened years earlier, quietly, in a decision made by a teenager who had no way of knowing what it would cost him. Andrey began using steroids at 18 years old, before his body finished developing naturally, or he had any real sense of what his genetics alone could produce, before the world had any idea who he was. He started with basic orals, or recovery, he said, to help his body handle the volume of training he was putting it through. Then, in his early 20s, he progressed to injectables. He was open about it, more open the most. He cautioned others against casual use. He acknowledged the financial and physical cost. He spoke with self-awareness that frankly, is rare for the world he inhabited. But self-awareness and consequences are two different things, and the consequences were already underway. Here's the cruelest part about Andrey's story. He didn't need it. His genetics, the ones that had the entire internet speechless, were extraordinary without any assistance. His strength before enhancement was already elite. His frame, his muscle insertions, his recovery, all of it was the top 1% before a single substance entered his body. He was already the miracle, and he reached for more anyway. There is a before. In the before, there was a young man with sharp features and a smile that reaches his eyes. He is lean, his face belongs to his age. He is laughing in these clips, genuinely laughing, not performing for the camera, not manufacturing content, just a young man who finds real delight in what he is doing. There is warmth in his expressions. Now look at the after. That face that appears in Andrey Smaev's more recent footage has aged in ways that years alone cannot explain. The jaw has widened, the brows sit heavier, the skin has thickened and coarsened. Features that were once defined by youth now carry closer to weathering. The kind of aging that happens not from time but by sustained chemical recalibration of the human body. He does not look like a man in his late 20s, but perhaps more striking than physical change is the emotional one. Watch his early videos and you see someone who's present, someone who is there, laughing, reacting, feeling the moment. Watch his recent content and something has shifted. Expressions are flatter, the eyes carry less, the smile, when it appears, feels more like a reflex than an emotion. He looks like a man who has become a machine, rather than a person who is living his life and letting others watch. Whether that's from the steroids, the pressure of online fame, or simply the weight of years, or all three combined, it's impossible to say with certainty. But something left him, it shows. It would be wrong to flatten Andrey Smaev into a warning and nothing more, because underneath the transformation, underneath the debate of the before and afters, and the podcast clips dissecting his hormone levels, there is genuinely a good man. He is a husband, a father to a young daughter, a man who goes to the supermarket himself because his wife is busy with the child, a man who says simply and sincerely that he wants to set an example, not smoke, not drink, train, and be present. He still works at the factory, not out of necessity at this point, but out of preference for stability. He prefers his small city to the chaos of something larger. He wants to build security for his family. He is, at his core, a working man who loves his family and his craft. That man, the husband, the father, the mechanic who trained on 7 ruble kettlebells, that man deserves to be seen clearly. The choices he made at 18, at 20, at 22, choices made in the body of a young man who didn't yet understand the long game, those choices are now written on his face, in his hormones, in his hollow expression that appears when the camera, and no amount of admiration for the man changes what those choices cost the boy. This is the question the entire video has been building toward. Was it worth it? Was the size worth it? Fame, the viral videos, the millions of views, supplement sponsorship codes, and the podcast appearances in the comment sections full of people who cannot believe their eyes? Was any of it worth the smile that used to be there and isn't? Think about the version of Andrey Smaev that existed before the internet found him. A young man training on outdoor bars in Saitis, laughing between sets, going home to his wife, going up the factory shift, living a life that was small by the world's standards and enormous by every standard that actually matters. He was happy, not famous, not massive, not the subject of TikTok debates about how much growth hormone he takes per day. He was happy in the specific, uncomplicated way that people are happy when they found the thing that they love and haven't yet let the world monetize it. Now look at what the pursuit of more produced. A body that the world cannot stop talking about, and a face that no longer seems to be having fun inside it. Physique that breaks records, and a biological age that doesn't match to the number on his passport. A man who is recognizable by millions and who carries the weight of that recognition in his expression like a man who's never asked to be a symbol. Fitness world will tell you that the gains are worth the cost, that the numbers justify the means, that if you have the genetics and the drive, why wouldn't you maximize both? But nobody talks about the smile. Nobody makes a viral compilation of the early clips where Andrey Smaev is just a kid who loves training, laughing and grinning, alive in the way that doesn't require 343 pounds of muscle to feel significant. Nobody asks whether the factory mechanic in some ways is living a better life than the internet figure he had become. And that silence, that collective decision to celebrate the transformation without mourning what it's lost, is the real curse, not the genetics. The refusal to ask whether the ceiling was worth hitting. Andrey Smaev is still training, still strong, still by his own account, content with his life. Maybe that's true. Maybe the man who appears on camera today carrying a flat expression and that enormous body is genuinely at peace with the trade he made. Maybe the life he has built, family, the stability, the global recognition, is everything the boy dared to dream about. Or maybe, late at night, in the quiet moment the camera never captures, he thinks about the version of himself that used to laugh between sets. The one who trained for the love and not for leverage. The one who smiled because he meant it. The 1% of the population that is born with genetics like Andrey Smaev's doesn't come with instructions. It doesn't come with a warning that the very gift that makes you extraordinary can become the engine of a different kind of loss. Not sudden, not dramatic, but slow and quiet and irreversible. It just comes with a barbell and a choice, and a whole life ahead to find out what the choice was really worth. Andrey Smaev made his. The question this video leaves you with, the only question that actually matters, is what you would do with yours.